Looks like the American president has gone too far. The United States Congress has officially warned Donald Trump of impeachment if he attempts a military takeover of Greenland. These are the shocking news stories that appeared in American media today. And, as the United States media reports, while Trump is pushing his Golden Dome project and demanding that Denmark immediately hand over the island of Greenland to United States control to ensure the security of the Western Hemisphere. The Democrats in the United States Congress have already pulled out draft indictments and are preparing to impeach Trump. Moreover, as Reuters writes, it was not the Democrats but Republican members of Congress who warned the guest of United States Secretary Marco Rubio and high-ranking White House officials about this threat. Apparently, there were also those among them who opposed Donald Trump's plans. And supposedly that's why Trump abruptly backed down and agreed to a preliminary agreement with NATO on Greenland, which, by the way, neither Denmark nor Greenland has agreed to yet. So let's figure out why Trump got so fixated on this, as he put it, piece of ice. What are his opponents saying and why? There are plenty of grounds for impeachment if Trump actually goes ahead with seizing the island or even just sending troops there. Here's where there's an interesting legal loophole. My name is Pechiy. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and please leave your comment under this video. This really helps a lot with promoting content on YouTube, and I would be very grateful for that. Also, subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. Let's review the facts, see the full picture, and determine why this is happening now. Well, it's already 2026, and obviously this is the time when the Arctic, specifically the Arctic, is becoming a battleground. And Trump isn't bluffing when he says he needs the island to protect America. Trump doesn't just want to buy this land for no reason. His administration recently published the National Defense Strategy of the United States of America, where Greenland is called a critical node for the survival of the United States. So Trump actually already has plans for the military development of the island written out. So it's obvious that this is no longer just populism, not just a statement, but he is really aiming to make it, as they call it, an unsinkable aircraft carrier for the defense of America. Well, first of all, the Iron Dome missile defense project is a kind of global missile defense system. And according to the strategy, Trump wants to place radars and interceptors specifically in Greenland, which will shoot down Russian and Chinese missiles heading toward America while they're still in flight. Well, at least that's how Trump advertises the Iron Dome missile defense system. And here it's very important to explain one interesting and curious point. We're all used to using world maps that are based on the Mercator projection. That's why it's very hard for us to imagine that Greenland actually lies between the United States of America and Russia. Overall, the Mercator projection was created back in the 16th century, and it greatly distorts the size and location of continents. But if you look at the map, let's say from a slightly different angle, that's it. We will see why Trump cares so much about Greenland, because we'll see that it's really a chunk of ice that, well, let's put it this way. If you install a missile defense system there, including sensors and radars, then this place will really become a kind of shield for America against any attacks from Russia and China. But Denmark is a NATO ally, she told Trump. No, and that's a categorical no. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said just a week ago in Davos, and I quote, "Greenland is not for sale, not for rent, and is not an object for military experiments without our sovereignty." Another factor is resource risk. Why does Trump want Greenland? Greenland has lithium, cobalt, and rare earth metals, without which no missile or electric car is possible, and Trump wants to take all of this for himself before China gets its hands on it through its so-called investments. We all know how China invests. They give loans, drive the country into debt, and when it can't repay with money. He says, for example, if you have rare earth metals, they take them and consider the loan paid. This also ends the United States' reliance on rare earth metals from China. But as you noticed, Donald Trump suddenly went silent on the topic of Greenland, even though just a week ago he was threatening to send troops there. At the Davos Economic Forum, he repeatedly said he no longer wants to seize anything by force, adding, "I wasn't planning to anyway." Where did you hear that? What army? No, that's not true. So, according to leaks from the White House, which are cited by Axios, Trump discussed the option of a temporary military protectorate in a close circle. What does that mean? Simply put, to send in troops under the pretext of protection from an imminent threat from the Russian Federation? Without asking the Danes about it, like, listen, we didn't even have time to warn you, we saw the threat, quickly sent in troops and protected the island. Well, now listen, for now we're here, we're staying on the island, and based on that, let's discuss what to do next. Like, where can the Danes go now if American troops are already on the island? That's a kind of hybrid format. And that's when the United States Congress exploded with indignation. The Democrats, led by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and the Senate leader, made a joint statement. Quote, 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 or establishing control over this territory bypassing international law, and Denmark's consent will be regarded as a usurpation of power. Quote, an immediate reason for an article of impeachment. And that's true. Quote, 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 quote. Quote, 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 he's not a fool. He understands that 2026 is, quote, the year of the congressional elections, and he immediately started to get ahead of the game. And just yesterday, he spoke at the Kennedy Center and told his supporters directly that, quote, the Democrats are going to impeach me for protecting America. They want our cities to be open to missiles just to please small countries in Europe, you know, hinting at Denmark. Well, there's a legal trap here. Because according to the Constitution of the United States of America, the President is the Commander-in-Chief, but he cannot initiate military action against a sovereign ally without a declaration of war by Congress. If Trump sends troops into Greenland under any pretext, he violates the War Powers Resolution Law. Even if troops are sent just for temporary protection, not for war. There are hidden pitfalls, and any military action in the Arctic or building the Golden Dome would cost hundreds of billions of dollars. The Democrats are hitting on the fact that Trump wants to spend Americans' money on imperial ambitions, while inflation inside the country is really breaking records, and before the elections, all of this works. If you look at it more globally, if Trump tries to take Greenland by force, well, obviously NATO will fall apart. At the same time, Europe has already stated that it will impose sanctions against the United States in response to aggression and will declare a trade war and so on. And that's why Politico writes today, quote, Trump has cornered himself. He promised a golden dome, but without Greenland, this dome is a leaky bucket. Now he has a choice. Either admit defeat or risk impeachment and go for a military adventure. And then suddenly another aspect appears, purely ethical. In Greenland, dissatisfaction is growing right now, protests are also emerging, and people there are simply afraid that they're being turned into a human shield. They say that all of the United States defense will be built on their land, and that's why there is growing resistance to this idea of Trump. By the way, Trump did a huge favor for the Democrats in Washington. Also, immigration and customs enforcement agents caused chaos in Minneapolis. And now the Democrats are already forming a special committee to, quote, prevent unconstitutional actions by the executive branch, and as you understand, this is preparation for impeachment proceedings. And now they're just waiting for Donald Trump to make a single wrong move, and they'll immediately start their pre-election game. As a result, the picture looks like this. We have Trump, who is obsessed with security, Arctic resources, the capture of Greenland, the Golden Dome, and so on. We have Congress, which is ready to take down Trump for violating an ally's borders, and we have Denmark, which is still hoping for support from its NATO allies. Objectively, it can't handle this alone, especially against America. Trump has already been warned. He was told, if we trust information, politics, and Axios, that Congress warned him not to do it, since it would be a usurpation of power requiring a response. Both Republicans and Democrats told Trump this. They're on standby and will immediately start impeachment proceedings when it happens. And that's exactly why Trump backed off a bit from his plans to take over Greenland. But that doesn't mean he won't return to this topic after the midterm elections. I'll leave it at that for now, friends. If you found this episode interesting and useful, you can support our work with your donation or subscription using the links and details provided. In the description of this video, it says support the channel. Choose any format that's convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support from you. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.